everyone who's... Well, Tyler, I guess I didn't text you. I texted everybody but you. I forgot that I had your number now. Everybody but Tyler got a text from me with a link to a survey. It asked one question: what topic do you want me to teach? This is just my way of taking requests. I did it anonymous because some of you may have a topic that you're embarrassed to ask about. Maybe it's something that you feel you should already know and you don't want people to know that you don't know. So I've already gotten 4 or 5 different, actually, thanks to one person, I'm up to like 8 topics now. And this is one of them. This is one of them. Are y'all ready? Or do I need to give you more time to find it? God bless you. These heathens don't have a Bible. I'm not going to name names, just saying. I'm in a playful mood, so I know what's going to happen tonight. Look at Matthew chapter 7, verse 1. It says, "Judge not, that ye not be judged, or that ye be not judged. For with what judgment ye judge, ye shall be judged. And with what measure ye mete, it shall be measured to you again. And why beholdest thou the mote that is in thy brother's eye, but considerest not the beam that is in thine own eyes? Or how wilt thou say to thy brother, Let me pull out the mote out of thine eye, and behold, a beam is in thine own eye? Thou hypocrite, first cast out the beam out of thine own eye, and then shalt thou see clearly to cast out the mote out of thy brother's eye. Give not that which is holy unto the dogs, neither cast ye your pearls before swine, lest they trample them under their feet and turn again and rend you." Tonight we're going to have a Bible study on pearls before swine. Don't you look pretty? I'm proud of that picture. I worked hard finding that on the internet today. Let's pray. Lord, we thank you for this opportunity, Lord. I thank you so much that we were able to make this a priority and be here tonight, God. Lord, I pray that it is your message, Lord. I pray that you instruct us, God, and you make us better for your purpose, Lord. Anoint the words, God. Remove any hindrance or distractions, Lord. In your holy name we pray. Amen. You may be seated. Pearls before swine. Yep, she's quite proud of her pearls. I did like that picture. I was like, oh, that's a good one. I'm going to wait for Shannon. It was her request.
She lived her life, so.
Yep, so we're going to, so I'm going to hold. We just got started good. She'll be back in just 1 second. Tyler, I'll send you the link. Please don't hesitate. Some of them are really good. You'd be surprised. I've actually got the same request twice from 2 different people. So, I mean, you'd be surprised if you just would trust me with your request. Shannon, I stalled for you. I saw that. But I told him that this is your request, so what? Pearl before swine, I tell you what. Trying to teach her when she gets up and leaves. All right, so now we read the first 6 verses of chapter 7. In context, I always start with in context. In context, it's telling you about trying to teach the gospel to someone who doesn't want to be taught. That was the dilemma. They were dealing with church folks at that time. The first few verses were talking about a beam and a mote in your eye, and you're trying to get a mote in their eye, and you're trying to get the beam out of yours. That's what they're dealing with. They're dealing with hypocrites and folks who don't want to change. The verses about the beams and the motes, I like another analogy. That's one of the writers, one of the commentators said, don't try to clean my face if your face is dirty. Clean your face first, and then you'll be fit to clean mine. I mean, you wouldn't want me giving you health advice, because obviously I'm not fit to give such advice unless it's from bad experience or bad example. So you don't want someone who needs the help that they're trying to give you. And that leads into folks who are not wanting to receive the gospel. Dogs and pigs have a very different value system than humans do. As much as you love your dog, if they're an inside dog, you have had something destroyed by that dog. Maybe when they were a puppy, and it was something important to you. I remember many of things I can name that dogs have destroyed that I really wish they had left alone. Things that may not matter to you, but a PlayStation remote. I've had dogs tear up my CPAP mask. That's important to me. I need that to sleep. But the dog did not value it the way I did. And though she is mighty proud of her pearls, she does not understand the value of them. She would be just as proud if I hung a wreath of garlic around her neck. She would be just as proud of it. She does not care. First, before I go too deep, I want to address that first verse. Judge not, lest ye be judged. It's kind of interesting that it starts off with judge not, and then it's telling you to judge folks who are pigs or dogs. It is not a contradictory. We need to understand that those who went to the revival, the evangelists mentioned, judging. We actually are expected to judge. We are. It's warning us that by being judged, we are therefore subject to being judged ourselves. And while we cannot judge someone as heaven or hell bound, we are expected to judge the spiritual matters of things. If we truly went through all of our lives trying not to judge anything, then we're likely to fall into any trap the devil has set beside us because we didn't want to discern whether or not it was good for us or not. I'm from Pine Bluff, born and raised. There's no stranger to the demographics there. I am the minority, an extreme minority. One night when I was working on Main Street, I got off late. It was about 9 o'clock, and the road was blocked here, so I had to go down a different street. And I don't know what was happening at 9 o'clock at night on that street in Pine Bluff, but there was literally 100 different people on that street. I wasn't judging them to be bad people, but my discernment told me to stop my vehicle, put it in reverse, and go find me another route. If I was worried about judging not lest I be judged, I would have plowed on through. And who knows what would, maybe nothing would have happened, but why take that chance? That's why God gave us common sense. Okay? If it had been daytime, I could have assumed a block party, but 9 o'clock at night, there was no need for a block party at 9 o'clock at night. I still don't know what they were doing or getting ready to do or have just done. But that's an example of how we need to understand what he's saying here. There are things we need to be aware of, and God expects us to judge that. So do not be naive, thinking that when it says judge not lest ye be judged, it's telling you to never make a judgment. It's often a misjudgment that gets you in bad situations. So it's not that we shouldn't judge, we need to judge wisely. Now, on the flip side though, I do want to add, this is where Pentecostals get their bad reputation. To never cast a judgment is foolish, but to be snotty is a sin. So I'm not giving you permission to be a snot, think you're better than somebody. I'm not saying that at all. I'm telling you use good discernment and good judgment. But you got to be Christian about it at the same time. The gospel, and here's where we're getting to why they didn't want to receive it. The gospel is about hope. We believe that. However, it is just as much about correction and reproof. You cannot be saved without correcting yourself. You cannot accept salvation if you don't reprove that old man. So the gospel is every bit about correcting somebody and reproving somebody at the same time as we're telling them they need Jesus. That's what we're saying, right? You need Jesus. You need to change what you're doing and correct yourself. Now, putting it like that, that may put you a better understanding of this verse of casting your pearl before swine. Because now we can relate. We know plenty of people who don't like to be corrected. We know plenty of people who don't like reproof. Are there any in here today? That's up to you to judge. I'm not naming names. I've already taken my glasses off. I can't see you anyway. I know where you're sitting. But I can't see you, okay? So if I'm stepping on toes tonight, God's stepping on your toes, not me. All right. Now the problem with with telling somebody they need Jesus is not everybody is fit to be reproved. I'm a big believer, and I wish my wife was here. I asked her to listen to this. I don't think she will, but she might. Unsolicited advice is not help. If they did not ask you for your help, you are not helping them, no matter how correct your advice may be. Man, I see one person writing in their pad. I wish every wife would put that in their pad. Nope, if we didn't ask you. Thank you, Taylor. Write it down, baby. Take notes. So when you're dealing with somebody who is quite comfortable in their way, and they didn't ask you, they didn't give you an invitation, to be careful what kind of advice you give to them. They may just be unfit for such advice. They may not be in a place where they can receive that. You cannot walk into the nearest drug house and start name calling, you sinner, you thug, you chump. That's going to get you shot. There's not a one of them in here that's going to say, oh, you're right, I wish somebody had yelled at me before. Not a one of them is going to accept that. Unsolicited advice is not help. Sometimes it's better to mind your own business for their sake and yours. When the disciples preached this gospel, some folks didn't like the correction. And they not only rebuked the correction, but they attacked them for it. Am I suggesting that we hide from persecution? No. The big picture is we cannot avoid persecution. The big picture is the church will be persecuted. However, individually, we need to show wisdom and discernment. Verse 6, I'm going to keep referring to verse 6, and that's where it says, don't take that what's holy cast before dogs, and don't cast your pearl before swine. That is verse 6. When Jesus said that, he didn't just make it up out of nowhere. He didn't just make that up right there. It was actually a relevant expression that they were quite familiar with. Let's start with what good counsel and reproof is called in the Bible. It's a holy thing. Good counsel and correction and reproof is a holy thing. This is my biggest beef with some televangelists, is they don't have the guts to reprove people and correct people. But the Bible calls it a good thing. In the book of Proverbs 25 and 12, as an earring of gold and an ornament of fine gold, so is a wise reprover upon an obedient ear. That reproof, that correction is precious. Psalms 141 verse 5. Let the righteous smite me, it shall be a kindness, and let him reprove me. It shall be an excellent oil, which shall not break my head, for yet my prayer also shall be in their calamities. It's an anointment. That's how holy it is. Proverbs 3, starting at verse 11. I could have went to just verse 18, but I wanted to build the discussion here. My son, despise not the chastening of the Lord, neither be weary of his correction. For whom the Lord loveth, he correcteth, even as a father the son in whom he delighteth. Happy is the man that findeth wisdom. Now that word wisdom is coming from correction. When you love the correction, you're showing wisdom. So happy is the man that findeth wisdom, and the man that getteth understanding. For the merchandise of it, talking about wisdom, is better than the merchandise of silver, and the gain thereof of fine gold. She, still talking about wisdom, is more precious than rubies. Not just wisdom, but the wisdom gained from correction. The experience of correction is more precious than rubies, and all the things that canst desire are not to be compared unto her. Length of days is in her right hand, and in her left hand riches and honor. Her ways are ways of pleasantness, and all her paths are peace. She, again, the experience of being corrected and reproved, is a tree of life to them that lay hold upon her. And happy is everyone that retaineth her. Our teachings, our gospel, our doctrine, it's a holy thing, and it is the pearl that we possess. Some people have no patience for correction and will trample on you. Does anyone remember why John the Baptist was killed? And I'm not talking about because he made a promise to his stepdaughter. Why did the stepdaughter want the head of John the Baptist? Because he rebuked them. He corrected them. He said, you should not have married her. And the woman was offended at the correction. She was offended at the reproof. And at the first chance she got, she had him killed. That is casting your pearl before swine. That is casting what is holy upon dogs, unless they trample on you and them. Second, now, I need us to understand that God, not only did we talk about how good correction is, but God expects us to listen to good counsel. Boy, I wish I had more people here tonight and hope more people listen in. You need to pay attention to what is preached. And here's one. 2 Chronicles 25:16. This is where Elijah just rebuked the king for bringing in false gods. And the king didn't appreciate it. And he said, are you one of my counsels? Why shouldn't I have you killed for talking to me this way? And this is what he said. And it came to pass as he talked with them, that the king said unto him, art thou made of the king's counsel? Forbear, why shouldst thou be smitten? Then the prophet forbare and said, I know that God hath determined to destroy thee, because thou hast done this, and hast not hearkened unto my counsel. God destroyed the king because he didn't listen to the man of God. You better thank God every day that we are in the dispensation of grace. Grace, again, is not mercy. It's an opportunity to find that mercy. What offended God then offends him now. Now, what does the Bible say about dogs? I did my diligence. I want to break this down as thoroughly as I can. Proverbs 26:11. It says, as a dog returneth to his vomit, so a fool returneth to his folly. Quit going back to your mistakes. To the person who constantly goes back to the same mistake, you are being compared to the same allegory of someone refusing the gospel. Just as someone who does not accept this doctrine is one of the dogs that he mentioned in Matthew 7:6, you are that same dog returning to the vomit. Now that's deep. I hope you understand what I'm saying there. By not learning from your mistakes, you are just as guilty as those refusing the gospel at all. Psalms 22:20. Deliver my soul from the sword, my darling from the power of the dog. Here, the word darling means life. Deliver my life from the power of the dog. Dog is the devourer of life. Look how low that is. When the Bible mentions dog, it's not a good thing. Those who do not accept the gospel will try to destroy it. Jesus even said in one of his conversations with the Samaritan woman, it is not meet to take the children's bread and cast it to the dogs. I do not believe he was literally calling her a dog. I believe he was testing her spirit, because her people was looked upon as dogs by the Jews, and he knew that, and he knew that she knew that. So he wasn't saying, I can't feed you because you're a dog. He was asking, why are you here? It's not meet to give children's bread to the dogs. In her response, we know, yea, Lord, but the dogs do eat the crumbs from the children's table. And he loved it, okay? But I'm just telling you how even Jesus referenced the low place of the dogs. Jesus used a regular understood metaphor when referencing the dog in the swine. In the East, now when we think of dogs, we may think of your annoying rat chihuahuas or something fat and bloated like the blimp Mike that she has. He is like a dog blimp. But he's sweet, though. He's a sweet blimp. But that's not what the Bible is describing here. In the East, dogs are wilder and more gregarious, and they feed on birds and garbage, and they're coarser and more fiercer than the same animals we have in the West. They don't domesticate them like we do. Dogs and swine, besides being ceremonially unclean, were particularly repulsive to the Jews, and indeed to the ancients in general. So when he says dogs and swine, he meant the lowest that they could imagine. Paul even demonstrated this practice that Jesus talked about, not casting your pearls before swine. In the book of Acts, chapter 18, starting at verse 1. We're going to read 6 verses here. After these things, Paul departed from Athens and came to Corinth, and found a certain Jew named Aquila, born in Pontus, lately come from Italy, with his wife Priscilla, because that Claudius had commanded all Jews to depart from Rome, and came unto them. And because he was of the same craft, he abode with them and wrought, for by their occupation they were tent makers. That's going to be one of your trivia questions. Well, next time I do Bible trivia, I'm going to ask you, what was Paul's occupation? And you need to know tent maker. And he reasoned in the synagogue every Sabbath, and persuaded the Jews and the Greeks. And when Silas and Timotheus were come from Macedonia, Paul was pressed in the Spirit, and testified to the Jews that Jesus was Christ. And when they opposed themselves and blasphemed, he shook his raiment and said to them, your blood be upon your own heads. I am clean. From henceforth I will go unto the Gentiles. That is a demonstration of the verse I'm teaching you tonight. He tried. They did not receive it. They demonstrated themselves to be dogs and swine. And he said, not my problem. And he went to someone who appreciated and understood the value of what he was offering. They did not want to be corrected. I need us to make sure that we don't do the same things that they did. We need to be careful of our own sacred cows. I believe with all my heart that what I'm about to say does not apply to those here. I hope I'm reaching someone through there. So many people won't accept our doctrine. They won't accept this gospel because it violates what Daddy and Mama taught them. Because it contradicts what Grandma and Grandpa taught them. And to believe what we believe could very possibly understand that Grandma and Grandpa may be in hell. And they would rather rebuke it than to picture that. As understandable as that may be, that is a mistake at your own peril. And to do so, you are rejecting the gospel to no excuse. And you are the very dog and swine that we're not supposed to worry about no more. And that sounds cold. I'm going to tie this back up later, okay? I'm not telling you to cut people off. I'm just teaching you the principle of discernment of what to waste your energy on. Pastor in Florida told me that if you're working harder to help someone than they are themselves, you're spinning your wheels. You ever tried to help somebody who didn't want to be helped? It's exhausting. And that's what we're talking about today. Now, if you are fitting in that dog and swine category, if you're realizing that there's things you haven't accepted, or maybe the dog returned to his vomit, or whatever, there's still time. Okay, so by no means am I casting you out. We need to understand that this conversation that we're having here, not me and you about verse 6, but you and that potential swine candidate, it requires courage and humility. It requires courage on their part because they have to be willing to let go of something. If what we say is right, then yes, they have gained that knowledge, but at the cost of something else that they thought they knew. You understand what I'm saying? To accept our doctrine is to let go of theirs. And that takes courage. You need to be aware of this when you're having these conversations. Don't be as don't be as harsh, don't be as coarse. Be more subtle, be more gentle, because you're asking a lot of them. It takes humility. They've got to be able to admit, you're right, I'm wrong. So we have to be careful how we handle them. And at the same time, we must be very cautious on whom we do label dogs and swine. We better not give them that label until after we've tried and there's full evidence of it. I believe there's many people that have been lost, not because we labeled them dogs and swine not worth our time, but if we had handled it differently, it would have worked. So the issue wasn't them, it was our approach, it was our delivery, it was our circumstance, but we blamed them for it. And I believe they're lost today because of that. So we need to be careful that we don't lose the patients we're trying to save. Not patients as in, but patients as in a medical patient that we're trying to have surgery, heart-changing surgery with. So in the terms of the context of what Jesus was saying, I'm going to summarize that. We're not done, just because I'm saying in summary. I'm just summarizing the context. Everything I did right now was to explain what Jesus was saying at that moment. I want to take it a different direction here in a second for a few more minutes. Give not that which is holy unto the dogs, things that are savage or snarling haters of truth and righteousness. Neither cast ye your pearls before swine, the impure or the coarse, who are incapable of appreciating the priceless jewels of Christianity. It's that simple, what he was saying. Now, while the context is pertaining to the gospel, this wisdom does apply to life and even relationships as well. Someone shared a Facebook comment. She was attacked unjustly, and this poor girl, she replied this long, sweet, heartfelt reply. And I don't know what happened from it, but I got a good clue. Because she was offering this love offering to someone who was incapable of receiving it. They had zero desire to mend fences. They didn't make their attack to start a conversation. They made the attack for no other reason than to attack. They wanted to cause pain, not resolution. So I don't think anything that that person said would have mattered to the dog in this situation, or the swine. Anything other than, quite possibly, you're right. Everything you've ever said was right. I admit I'm wrong. You're right. That may be the only thing they would have heard, but I really doubt they would have accepted that. Because they're at the point where they're just wanting to hurt. This is an example of pearls before swine. To the giver of the apology, it took a lot out of him. It took a lot of admit and a lot of humility to say, I made my mistakes. But the recipient of it had no value of that. It was just words. Pearls before swine. Be careful not to give the best of you to something or someone who cannot appreciate it. That goes beyond any relationship. That goes work. Do not kill yourself for a job that will replace you tomorrow. I learned that the hard way. You may think you're irreplaceable at your job, but I guarantee you, God forbid something happened and you don't show up to work tomorrow, they will find someone else. It doesn't matter how good you are, you're replaceable. But yet we will throw our lives away for jobs who don't even appreciate it. That's why I don't believe in 100% attendance. I'm actually at odds with my supervisor right now. Because I took a pay cut to go from Job Corps to here, partly because of the benefits of 15 hours of vacation a month. That's a good benefit. The Job Corps only offered 6 and 6. 6 hours of sick, 6 hours of vacation. After being there a year, I finally got bumped up to 8 and 8. Or not even 8 and 8, 7.23. Okay, 7.23 hours. They couldn't even give me a day a month. But this place gives you 8 hours of sick and 15 hours of vacation a month. But do you know I've had to file grievances to get a day off? It's a mindset there. They don't want you to take off. No matter what your work schedule is. And I'm not talking about taking off in the middle of a busy season. So I'm having to fight, and I'm trying to let them know. And they've never met a creature like me, I guess, because everyone else just said, yes, sir, yes, ma'am. And I'm, no. You don't understand. I don't believe in 100% attendance. I'm not giving you the best of my life because I know you don't appreciate it. Easy I came, and easy I can go. You'll find somebody else. This is a good job. There's a lot of other IT guys out there that would like to have this job. I know you don't need me. So I'm going to do the best I can, do my job, do a good job for you, earn my paycheck, but I'm not going to give you my life. And I learned that the hard way because I've had a job before where I did that, and I became suicidal, trying to give everything to that company. And I refuse to ever do that again. So I'm asking you, do not give the best of you to something or someone who cannot appreciate what you're giving. If you've already married that person, we need to have marriage counseling. Because we don't teach divorce. So I need you to work it out, find a way. Let's counsel. But if you're not married, you can let that person go. If they're worthy, they'll fix themselves. But you don't have to be tortured while they fix themselves. Your pastor's giving you permission to let go of that dead weight. Quit casting your pearls before your swine. And have a better life. We need to be intentional about who we share with. That's a principle we need to understand. We have a responsibility. Now, I know I called you to make you feel good just now, and I'm about to come back, and I'm going to slap you for a second. Be intentional about who you share with. When Jesus said it, it's a commandment. It was not a suggestion. He didn't say if you feel like it. He told you don't cast your pearls before swine. So to do so is a sin. You are in the wrong for doing that to yourself. He knew Calvary was coming. He knew what he was going to invest in you. And he did not invest in you for you to run yourself down for someone who's not worth it. Or for something who is not, or what is not worth it. You have to be intentional about who you share yourself or your pearls or your holy thing with. Do not feel obligated to exhaust yourself on people who don't value you. With this wisdom being available, and now that Jesus has said it, you know that it's a commandment, you are accountable for your choice. I need you to understand this part. This may sting a minute. You are not allowed to feel sorry for yourself if you choose to stay there. Man, I can't stand it. People, there's no one in this room, okay? All they do is complain about their relationship. And I plainly told them, I said, then break up. Well, no. Then stop complaining. One or the other. If you're choosing to stay there, then you lose the right to complain. And I mean that. You need to take responsibility for your action. Don't quit playing the victim card because no one made you a victim. It's not their fault. Dogs do what dogs do. Right? Pigs are what pigs are. If you expected something better from a pig, that's your fault. If you expected better from a dog, that's your fault. You are accountable for your actions. And you will get no pity for putting yourself in a bad situation. That concludes our lesson tonight. Do we have any comments, questions, or concerns? We went through a wild array of thoughts. Does everyone have a better understanding of the pearl before swine? Let's close with a prayer.